for the center?
Primarily communications officers. We have 3 levels in the 911 center. We have communications officers, which is the entry-level position. We have senior communications officers, communications supervisors. I have a communications training coordinator that runs our training program. We have a communications accreditation manager who also manages the department's accreditation. We also have somebody that manages our GCIC and NCIC access, so an administrative person.
And as far as that particular center, annually, about how many calls come into the center per year, sir?
Our center processes around 175,000 calls a year. Last year we processed over 136,000 emergency 911 calls. The rest of the calls would be non-emergency calls.
And in addition to those calls, do you also manage the radio calls, I guess, that come in from officers?
Yes, sir. We also dispatch for the Clark County Police Department. We also dispatch for the City of Winterville Police Department. In addition to that, we provide dispatch services for the Clark County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Athens Clark County Fire Department and the Winterville Fire Department.
Okay. Now, as far as the center itself, what does it look like, I guess, as far as the folks when they are answering calls, receiving calls, dispatching calls, and so forth?
We work in an approximately 1,600 square foot room. There are 10 dispatch consoles or positions where the dispatchers sit. Shifts typically run with 7 to 8 people per shift. There are 2 police dispatchers, one for the fire department, one for the sheriff's office. In the center of the room is a communications supervisor. They sit in the middle of the room and monitor everything that's occurring, address any needs that come up, and then the remaining staff that works answer calls as 911 call takers.
Are you familiar with the term computer-aided dispatch?
Yes, I am. Yes, sir.
What is that?
Computer-aided dispatch, that's the computer system that we log all activity in the 911 center. If an officer goes out on a traffic stop, we log it in CAD. If somebody calls in on 911 for emergency assistance, we would log it in CAD. The dispatcher takes the basic information, if it's a call, enters it into CAD, the location, what's occurring, and then they send it kind of like email to the right person to dispatch it. So if it's a fire call, the call is accepted into the system and then it electronically goes to somebody else who would dispatch it. If it's a call for police assistance, they would enter it into the system and again, it's sent to somebody else who dispatches it. It allows the call taker to actually stay on the line and keep gathering information.
And how do they log that in? In what manner? How do they do that?
They would get the information by talking to the caller on the phone. They would get the location of what is occurring, create a CAD event, enter it into the system, type out a narrative, and then electronically send it to somebody for dispatch.
Now, are you familiar with these mobile data terminals that officers have?
Yes, sir.
MDT.
Yes, sir.
And what are those, sir?
Mobile data terminals are computers that are mounted in the patrol cars or the fire trucks in the county. It's a computer terminal that the CAD information, when it's created in the CAD system, when that officer is dispatched to a call, the information is sent to that mobile data terminal, and it has the call location, directions to it, and then the narrative that the dispatcher has typed up.
Now, that CAD system, is that under your supervision and control as the communications administrator for the 911 center?
Yes, it is.
And is there that CAD system, when someone is logging in, is there a date and time associated with the entries?
Yes, there is.
And those date and time, what controls that clock, I guess, to indicate what date and time that would be for the CAD system?
The CAD system is synchronized with something called a net clock. Basically, it's a networked clock. It gets its time source from GPS, which would come from the atomic clock.
And now, how about the radio system, 800 megahertz system? Does that come under your control and supervision? No,
sir. The 800 megahertz radio system is actually operated and maintained by Howell McKinnon. He is our 800 megahertz radio system coordinator. It is a system separate from the computer-aided dispatch system. They're independent from one another.
And are they able to basically create some sort of report indicating different radio traffic?
The radio system, it is possible to produce a report showing when radio traffic has occurred on that system.
Are you familiar with the SmartNet information management system?
Yes, sir. That's the information system for the radio system. So it has a reporting module, and that is what that would be.
And as it records when radios are keyed up or somehow turned in one way or another, it had the date and time stamp as well?
Yes, that system would record any action by the radio. If the radio is keyed up or transmitted, if a dispatcher keys up or transmits, if there are any actions with the radio, such as changing the radio talk group or channel, the system would log that. It maintains communication with all of our portable radios out in the field.
Is that clock at all tied to the CAD system? Are they synchronized at all?
No, sir. They're two independent systems. They do not utilize the same time source. They are not tied together.
Now, how about recordings when calls come in, whether it's 911 or whether it's radio traffic or otherwise, those recordings, is there some sort of recording system in the 911 center that you manage?
Yes, we do have a recording system in the 911 center. It records all radio traffic, all telephone traffic that occurs in the center.
And does that have a separate clock that governs it, that indicates what times and dates certain things happen?
Yes, that system is independent also, and it has its own clock for time.
And is that clock synchronized at all with the CAD system?
It is not.
And you indicated the CAD system is tied to a net clock, which is tied to the atomic clock?
Yes, sir.
Was that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, let me go back to March 22nd, 2011, sir. Between 1 o'clock and 1:30 in the afternoon, were you working on that particular day?
Yes, I was.
And during that time, were you in the center when a call came out about an officer being shot?
I was in the administrative area of the center. I did have a radio that I was monitoring. I typically listen to my staff while they're working through a portable radio just to know what's occurring.
And what was it you heard and what action did you take?
I heard an officer cry out that he had been shot. I immediately got up from my office and went into the 911 communication center.
And what else happened after that, sir?
After that, we had an incident where 2 officers had been injured in a shooting, and I started communicating directly with the communications supervisor and monitoring the response.
And what else did you do that day?
I helped direct the response, helped pass out information, helped review what had occurred, and helped formulate a plan on how we would process incoming tips and information.
Now, did you actually go out to any instant location that day, or did you remain in the center?
I remained in the center.
At some point after that, specifically March 30th, 2011, did you coordinate with Howard McKinnon and request a report from him for some purposes?
I did. At a later time, I asked Mr. McKinnon to run a report of all the radio traffic through the reporting system of the 800 megahertz radio system, basically a report showing when everybody had transmitted and what it and received, basically to see what had occurred traffic-wise in that system. And I asked him to retrieve a report on that.
Okay. And did he do that?
Yes, he did.
And did he print out certain pages that related to that incident there?
Yes, he did. He printed out 3 pages of a report from the radio system.
And with those 3 pages, what did you do and he do?
Got together with Mr. McKinnon. We took these 3 pages of radio traffic within a time period, and we wanted to look at when Officer Christian had been injured. We wanted to look at the radio traffic and basically compare the audio on the recording system to the transmissions on the radio system. My goal was to go line by line of all of the radio transmissions and account for them with the recording system, basically compare the 2 and line them up.
And with what you created, those 3 pages, did you write on that document and make those records simultaneously to listening to those recordings?
Yes, sir, I did. I compared the transmissions to the radio traffic and basically wrote down what had been said with the radio traffic and matched it to each transmission.
And was that document that you created there kept then in the ordinary course of your work there as the communications administrator at the 911 center?
Yes, it was. I secured it in my office and held on to it.
And are you the general custodian of certainly at that particular record?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you, if I can, what's already been marked and displayed to the defendant as State Exhibit 693, as well as a copy of that Exhibit 694. Probably been shown.
693, 94. You remember seeing that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You recognize 693, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is the document that we printed out. This is the actual document that we printed out of the radio system traffic, and then I made notes of each transmission.
And what you had from Mr. McKinnon on that printout from the SmartNet Management Information System, or Information Management System, what did it show?
Showed every transmission when an officer or a unit keyed up their radio. It showed every transmission of when they changed talk groups on the system or channels on the system. And then it showed certain transmissions when they were received from an action on the radio.
And did you limit your review of the radio calls with those particular corresponding radio transmissions on that document?
Yes, sir, I did. I just picked a point. I was trying to account for the situation involving Officer Christian and Officer Howard. I just picked a point before that event occurred and started following the traffic there. I basically picked a point before the incident occurred and started to move down.
And when did you actually make that review, or when did y'all do that?
We did that on March 30th.
2011?
Yes, sir, 2011.
And this has been kept in your possession during that time?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would tender State Exhibit 693 into evidence at this time. And 694, what is that, sir?
694 is a copy of the original document.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to just display that and go through that, and if I may have 694 to do that. Or 693, and then he can look at 694. That may be better. Let me show you what his, on 693, that document page 20. On the top left corner, do you see basically a date and time that that document may have been created?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
That is March 30th, 2011 at 09:26 hours.
Now, under this column that has log time, you see some times as it goes through on that particular column, as well as the column that says start time.
Yes, I do.
And are those basic times accurate in this report that came from the 800 megahertz radio system?
Those times are accurate, however, they are off by 1 hour.
Okay. And compared to CAD or perhaps to the recording times, would they be off as well?
They are slightly off because the two systems were separate from one another. They were not exactly synchronized to the second.
And over here on the right-hand side, there's a notation with a asterisk there. Who wrote that?
I did.
And what does that say for the record?
I put an asterisk and said clock was off by 1 hour due to DST, which would be daylight savings time change.
And the log time up there in the first column, in the first entry on the line there, it says 12:10:55. Is that supposed to be 1:10:55?
Yes, that would actually be 1:10:55.
And again, the minutes and seconds were or were not synchronized with the CAD as well as the radio traffic items.
Correct. The minutes and seconds were not synchronized exactly with the CAD system. They were two independent systems operating separately with different time sources, so they would not line up exactly.
As we go over here with a start time, duration, action, in particular the radio, tell us about the radio. What does that indicate as far as the radio?
Radio shows the unit number. So every officer or unit on the radio system has a unit ID. And with the police department, we have the radio number and unit ID matched up. So an officer such as 2370 would be Officer Buddy Christian, and we would have it displayed so that if he transmitted his radio in the 911 communication center, they would see that officer's radio ID. So an officer that's 2222, when he keys his radio, will say 2222, or 2370, it'll say 2370, so that they know who they're speaking to, or if the unit cannot speak, they can still see his unit ID.
If he just simply switches the channel on his radio, would that basically, or does some action on his radio, will it pop up in this system here and show that?
It will. If an officer changes his talk group, which again is the channel on the radio, it will also register that with the system. However, the column to the left that says action, it would say receive. So the radio system is receiving that he has changed that talk group on his radio.
Now, going down here further, sir, as we look at that, there are some notations down there. What is that, sir?
These are notations I made of what I could hear on the audio exactly at the time of that transmission. So I lined up the transmission and the unit number with the transmission on the radio system. So what you're seeing is what was said on the radio at that time, based on what I heard on the recording system.
And going over to the column that has, so it's displayed that shows the start time. Do you see that first entry there, sir? You
Yes,
can
I
look at
do.
your copy if you need to.
Yes, I see it.
And what was that start time?
12, 20, and 13 seconds.
And with daylight savings time on this system, it would be 1:20 and 13 seconds.
That is correct.
And basically, what was that involving 2370 or Officer Christian?
That was basically, I had noted that he answered Central, and Central is the call sign for the dispatch center. So that's not actually what he said. That's just when I started this, and I just noted that he answered Central. They had called him to give him radio traffic, and he was responding to it.
And at the next line there, what does that show?
That is Central, the dispatch center, responding to Officer Christian, telling him that they were sending him a call. $740-202 is one of our dispatch consoles in the center, and that's the dispatcher telling him, sending you a call by phone.
And the next line is what?
The next line is Central Communications saying Central 1169, so they are calling Officer 1169, which would be SPO Tony Howard, so they're calling him to raise him on the radio.
And the next entry there?
The next one is 1169 responding, so SPO Howard was responding with his 4-digit radio number. Central had called him Central 1169, and then he responded 1169.
And that would have been at 1:22.
Yes, sir, 122 and 18 seconds.
according to the time clock in the radio system.
That is correct.
And then what's the next entry after 1169?
The next entry is Central Communications telling 1169, are you clear about Jamie Hood possibly being at Cascades?
And is there a response from 1169?
Yes, sir. 1169 responded and said, I am now going to check the area.
And then what did Central Communications respond?
Central responded and said 10-4. 10-4 means okay. They're acknowledging it.
And this next entry, and the next entry.
The next entry are two other officers that were on that same radio talk group or channel talking to one another. So 2299 was an officer, and that's Officer Mendelar, and 2391 was Officer Michael Ward, and they were communicating with one another at the same time.
And what are these? This other one here that was indicated at 12:22 or 1:22:42 seconds. Can you swing by? What is that?
That is officers Ward and Mendelar just communicating with one another. Mendelar had called Officer Ward and then asked him, can you swing back by this way?
And that radio traffic, as we go on down, does it appear to relate necessarily to Sycamore, or do you know?
No, it does not appear to relate to Sycamore. They were just communicating with one another about a place to meet or a previous call they were on.
Let me show you, if I can, the second page, or the next page, page 21. You see that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And as it starts there, can you go through the different calls all the way down to negative?
I can.
Go ahead.
Officer Ward 2391 said thank you on the radio. Officer Mendelar 2299 then keyed back up and said 391 at your convenience. 2391 Officer Ward responded back and said 10-4, I thought you just wanted a case number. 2299 and Mendelar responded back and said negative.
And on the next line, or the next two lines,
the next transmission was 1156. 1156, which is SPO Jerry Johnson, called Central Communications. He said 1156 Central, so he's calling the dispatch center.
And how did Officer Jerry Johnson respond to that?
He responded back and said, he called Central, and then Central responded back and said 56.
And that initial call was at, according to this system, it says 12:28:31, but it would have been 1:28:31 according to the clock in the radio system.
That is correct.
And Central responded back at what time then?
Central responded back at 12:28:34 as noted by the system, which would be 1:28:34.
And the next entry after that would have been what, sir?
The next entry occurred at 12:28 and 36 seconds, or 1:28 and 36 seconds. It lasted 4 seconds. Officer Christian, 2370, transmitted on his radio, Central, I'm shot, Central, I'm shot, oh my God.
And how do you know that was 2370 that communicated that transmission?
Because the system logged it in as 2370. That radio was actually transmitted with his voice when I heard it at the time of that transmission.
And 2370 was logged under the radio 1 column?
Yes, sir. 2370 was logged under the radio 1 column.
And the time of that, according to this clock on this 800 megahertz system, was what?
12:28 and 36 seconds.
Or what with daylight savings time?
1:28 and 36 seconds.
And we're just going to go through the next transmissions. What happened next?
That's fine. Central immediately responded and said 10-3. 10-3 is a 10 code for stop transmitting. Basically, if we have emergency traffic, we clear the channel so that nobody else speaks. Central's immediate response was 10-3, hold all traffic.
And what are these next entries here? 2481, 2240, 2384, 3370, and 3378, sir.
These are actually system receive acknowledgments. There is no radio traffic. These are units now changing their radio to the talk group that they were on. So Officer Christian's traffic occurred on our PD West talk group. So our West Side police officers talk on PD West. Other officers may be listening to the system, and they may be either scanning the system. Well, they have to be scanning it to hear the traffic. They would be scanning the system, and this is them actually turning over to the PD West talk group. So once that traffic occurred and Central Communications said 10-3, hold all traffic, other units then start changing their radios to the PD West talk group to listen to the traffic.
And what was the next communication then?
The next communication occurred at 12:28 and 40 seconds, actually 1:28 and 40 seconds. It was a push-to-talk by 11:56, which was SPO Jerry Johnson. He said, units on Sycamore Drive got a suspect running.
And the next two transmissions?
The next one was a detective, 3303. Our detectives have 3,300 numbers. He was switching his radio to PD West. The following transmission came from Central Communications from the dispatcher. He said all units to Sycamore Drive. So he's telling everyone, respond to Sycamore Drive.
And the next 7 transmissions, or 7 reports in there, what is that, entries, what is that, sir?
More units changing their radios to the PD West talk group. More units changing over.
And then what's the next transmission where it says 1156?
I just noted that. That's not verbatim, but 1156 keyed up, and he asked Central Communications to get an ambulance en route for SPO Tony Howard.
That was your summary of what he was saying?
Yes, sir. That's not exactly what was spoken, but that's my summary. He was asking for an ambulance.
And the next 3 entries were?
Again, more units switching over to the PD West talk group. We have a sheriff's deputy and then 2 more Athens-Clarke County Police units switching over.
And what is that 10-4?
That is Central Communications acknowledging the request for the ambulance. This is all happening very quickly at one time, and the system's logging it. But this is Central Communications, the dispatcher, acknowledging the request for the ambulance.
And the next entry from 1156, sir, what is that?
1156 said, I need unit Central. It's 69. It's 1169.
And what does Central respond?
Central acknowledged the transmission, said 10-4. Again, that means okay.
And down here further, you had some that you didn't have the entry. 2456 that received, 2279 received, 2237 received. What were those?
Those are more units changing their radios to the PD West talk group.
And the next 4 entries here, sir, what are those? 2299, 2361, 2465?
Those are West Side police units acknowledging that they need units en route to Sycamore Drive, and they're basically telling the dispatcher they're en route. 2299 was saying 99's en route. Sometimes officers will just give the last half of their radio number. It's faster, keeps the channel clear, so they're just acknowledging 99's en route, 61 en route, 65's en route.
And then last, that other entry there from 1156, what is that?
1156 keyed up and said he's running around with a gun, Central.
And that was at marked at 1229.28 or 129.28?
Yes, sir, 129.28.
And these next entries that talk about receive, were those just folks keying their radio to that channel?
No, this is more units changing over to that PD West talk group. They're still switching their radios over.
Yes.
These aren't showing.
I'm sorry.
It's in.
I should have done it. I'm sorry, Jeff. And that last entry is just above where I have the page there.
Yes, so that's 1156. Again, keying up, saying he's running around with a gun, Central. He's running around with a gun, Central. He's running around with a gun, Central.
And these other ones here are where folks are keying up, all the receives there.
They're not keying their radios, they're actually just changing their talk groups. They're switching over to the West talk group.
Yes, sir. And the last entry that you wrote on that page is 12:29:50 or 1:29:50. Duration of 10 seconds. Push to talk, 11:56. What is that, sir?
Yeah, I would object to this particular evidence going into the jury room with jury because it's like that continuing witness. They looking at what he's saying. He wrote this down. It didn't come off a computer. It's just like he testified. He writes his testimony on this paper. And I just called him. I said, well, this didn't come off no computer. This is handmade. He wrote his own down.
I say, it's been admitted into evidence.
Yeah, I just told him.
And we can take up whether or not there may be things that don't go back. We can take that up to certain time.
Thank you, Jeff. This last entry there, sir, or what you wrote down on this page at 12:29:50 or 1:29:50, according to the clock with the 800 megahertz radio system, 10 seconds push to talk from 11:56. What was that?
That was 11:56. He said black male, white t-shirt, and shorts.
And then on this last page, which was page 22, did you do any recordings on that or make any records on that and writings at all?
No, sir.
Mr. Kelly, thank you, Judge. Why is it like? Prior to what you wrote on the page there, that first record that you wrote, answer call, followed by sending you a call by phone. Anything prior to that? Did you listen to that radio traffic at all and work on that, make notations on that at all?
No, sir.
And why is that?
Again, I was trying to capture the incident or the events around SPO Christian and SPO Howard being shot. I was not trying to check any of the traffic before that. Primarily what I was looking at was the timing of those two events.
Was there traffic that occurred before that?
Yes, there was.
And were you aware that there were officers that may have been dispatched to that area earlier to look for a particular vehicle?
Yes.
Were you aware or not whether they at some point went available or went back into service?
I really didn't follow the details on that call. I know that there were transmissions before that. I can see that here, but again, I didn't go into the details of the transmissions prior to what I wrote down.
And what was recorded in by the center, the recordings of the radio traffic, as well as any 911 calls, that would be an accurate record of what went on before and after, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
No questions, Sam.
I got to talk loud. Can you hear me? I'm trying. Y'all can't please. I don't want to turn your fan off on you, so. Afternoon, Mr. Kelly. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
You said that you were responsible for the Athens Clark County Center. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm responsible for the Athens Clark County Communications Center.
Okay, what are you, the top guy? What are you?
I'm the administrator over the center.
So, that means you the head guy. I'm trying to figure out who the head guy is. You.
I'm the administrator over the center. I report to the assistant chief and the chief. They're responsible for my operation, but I'm the administrator that manages the day-to-day operations.
Good enough. I'll make it something, sir. You said you was in the center on March 22nd, 2011. You was in the center.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you was aware about this alleged carjacking call came in with Jadon Brooklyn, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
Tell us what you know about that person.
I heard a little bit of the traffic. I was in my office. I had the radio on in the background. I knew that an event had occurred, but I wasn't aware of the intimate details. I know that there had been some sort of carjacking and then some sort of situation on Lexington Road. That's about it.
I'll make it something. is it a crime to call the 911 center and give false information? Is that a crime?
It is.
Tell us what type of crime that is.
It's giving false information. If you're providing false information to the communication center, it could be considered a crime.
You was aware about this carjacking suspect, Jacob Hood? They put my name out as a suspect. You was aware of that?
I was not aware of your name specifically. I was aware that there was a carjacking suspect.
Okay. But was you aware that several officers went to Sycamore Drive looking for me as a carjacking suspect?
I knew that they were looking for a carjacking suspect. I did not know the specifics of Sycamore Drive.
So you don't, I thought you said y'all went back and y'all reviewed the radio traffic of that.
We did at a later time,
Okay,
but while the event was unfolding, I did not.
After you reviewed them tapes, who all went to Sycamore Drive after you reviewed the tapes?
The officers that I noted on the sheet, Officer Howard, Officer Christian was out there, and Officer Johnson.
So Officer Christian was just on Sycamore Drive on some unrelated call.
I don't know if he was or not.
But I thought you just said he was over there looking for a carjacking suspect.
I know that he was in that area is what I had said. I didn't say he was looking for a carjacking suspect specifically. There were several units out there that were looking, but again, I said that I wasn't sure which units were involved. I knew that there were several units looking for one.
John, can I see the state exhibit, whatever, the deal that you got right there?
Can you narrow that down a little bit?
The
693
The same one he just showed him, Mr.
with the lighting on it?
Yes, sir. Mr. Keith Kelly is
86, 693, which is the Lawrence one, that way he'll still have the copy. 693. Okay. 693, please.
Thanks, sir. Oh. You created this, who you created this with?
I created this with the radio system coordinator,
And who was that? That'd be Mr.
Howell McKinnon.
Mr. McKinney.
Yes,
I know that you got your own handwriting over there, is that correct?
that is correct.
Why didn't you let the computer print this off the job?
Because the computer's not capable of printing out radio transmissions.
But don't the computer pick up what people calling and telling them?
No, the recording system does.
Okay, well, why didn't you let the recording system print it down instead of you put your own handwriting on?
Because this document was produced by the radio system, the recording system is a completely separate system from the radio system. It cannot print transmissions.
So you would agree this your own perception of what you heard?
This is what I heard on the recording system and wrote down each word.
But that's on, you done that yourself, right?
That is correct.
So that's on your own perception, is that right?
It's what I heard at the time.
It's what you heard.
Correct.
You're right. Now listen to this. Now you say you listen to that radio traffic, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did it sound like that person who called 10-4 been shot? Did it sound like the same person throughout that whole entire that play and that thing?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
When you listen to the radio traffic, 10-4, I've been shot.
Right.
Okay.
Your Honor, I would object. That's misleading because that's not what he said. If you're saying that the words are 10-4, I'm shot, that is not what's been said, not what he recorded.
Okay.
I'll explain that in check.
I noticed on your paper here you said, Central, I'm shot. Central, I'm shot. Oh my God. Did you put that on your paper?
Yes, I did.
I also know that you put suspect running. Then you put that on your paper.
Yes, I put that there was a suspect running.
Okay. Now, did it sound like that person who said 10-4, I'm shot, the suspect running? Did them sound like the same person, the same voice?
No, they did not.
It didn't sound like that to you. Somebody else could see different. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Okay. Did y'all run a voice identification on that tape? Did you run a voice identification on that tape?
No, we don't have that capability.
Well, I mean, could you get somebody to come in? You could have got somebody to come in. You got enough money to get somebody to come in and investigate that.
I wouldn't even know who to call. I'm not sure that anybody's got that capability.
Well, you do have voice identification people, don't you? Is that right?
No.
Expert.
No, we do not.
I mean, if there's someone out there, if you want to try to retrieve them, you could.
I don't know that. I've never looked for anybody as capable of doing that, so I'm not sure.
Or were you looking at all, or you didn't want to look?
I had no reason to look. All I was doing was writing down the transmissions.
Okay. So, now, you said you reviewed the 911 tapes on March 22nd, 2011. Did you hear anybody dispatch Officer Christian over there about this carjacking call, sir?
No, Officer Christian was not dispatched on a carjacking call.
So did Officer Christian talk to dispatcher Benjamin Paul about a carjacking suspect that day?
I don't know. I have just reviewed the traffic from this point on.
So I thought you said you the commander, you was there. You want to know if your dispatcher Paul Benjamin, what his name is? Benjamin Paul? Yeah, right here. Benjamin Paul, he was on duty that day. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I'm asking you, did Benjamin Paul talk Officer Christian about giving him information about what kind of car was in the carjacking?
I don't know. I haven't reviewed that part of the radio traffic.
Or you didn't want to review it?
No, I haven't reviewed that part of the radio traffic.
Well, I thought you told the jury you reviewed all radio traffic for March 22nd, 2011, sir.
No, sir. I told them that I reviewed the radio traffic where I noted it on the sheet, which started on March 30th, beginning at 1:20 hours and 13 seconds. I did not review it prior to that.
You said you was in the center on March 22nd, 2011. You were aware of what was going on. Is that correct?
I was in an office in the center. I was not on the floor of the communication center.
I thought you said you had a radio on you. Is that correct?
I did have a radio on.
But if you had a radio on you, how you couldn't hear it?
I told you I had the radio on in the background. I wasn't listening to every transmission. I typically have the radio on the background, and if there's a transmission that occurs that strikes my attention, then I start listening, but otherwise I'm handling administrative duties.
So are you telling that you didn't listen to what you wanted to listen to? You didn't thoroughly investigate what you telling us?
That's argumentative and kind of question.
Did you thoroughly, what position you say you had? You was over everybody, is that right?
I'm the communications administrator.
Okay, you the communication administrator.
Yes,
When you think this is a very significant case,
I do.
when you think that it's significant for you to thoroughly investigate all the calls, instead of just a little piece of it,
I have no reason to investigate all the calls. I have staff under me that's competent and able to handle it. They pulled the radio traffic and presented it.
well, wouldn't it be your job to make sure your subordinates up under you, make sure they do their job right? Is that right?
To a point, yes, but I can't review every single traffic and radio call that comes into our center.
So what, you just review what you want, you just a little bit of it?
In this case, I reviewed this portion of it, yes.
Okay, but you didn't investigate everything then, did you?
No, sir.
Did you talk to Officer Johnson about what he said?
No.
Why not?
I have no reason to.
You didn't, so you just want to put out what you want to put out. Didn't say that, sir?
All I did was get a transcription of the radio traffic at the time. I had no reasoning to talk to Officer Johnson.
But that's your version of the radio transfer, is that right?
Yes, this is my version of the radio traffic.
Okay. Do you know what Officer Howard told the GBI that Tony Howard, the woman was on that radio that shot fired? Did you know that?
I don't know.
Did you investigate the scene and find out before you wrote what you wrote?
I'm not an investigator. All I did was transcribe the radio traffic.
Well, did you investigate the call to put this name here? You don't investigate what you doing?
No, I did not investigate it. I transcribed the call. I wrote down what I heard from the recording system. That was as far as I went.
No further question. We took too much time on this already.
693, please. On the second page there, page 21, where it says, Central, I'm shot, oh my God. Does it indicate what radio made that transmission?
Yes, it does. It was radio with the ID 2370. The radio ID is tied to the officer. When we assign them a portable radio, we use the radio ID of their badge number.
And, sir, that transmission, it wound up saying, units on Sycamore Drive got a suspect running. What radio made that transmission?
That would be 1156 SPO Jerry Johnson.
Were those two different transmissions made by the same radio or different radios?
No, sir, they were made by different radios, as shown with the radio ID.
And who made the transmission and what radio, who was assigned that radio that made the transmission, Central I'm Shot, oh my God?
That was radio with the ID 2370, which was SPO Buddy Christian.
Thank you.
Let's read. Again, that's your own perception, right?
That's what I heard and wrote down from the audio.
But again, is that your own perception?
I don't know about perception. That's what I wrote down based on what I heard.
Okay, now, you don't know the voice on that. You didn't do no voice identification on that, did you?
I have no way to do voice identification.
No other question.
The radio call numbers here. Is that your perception, or is that the system that creates makes you call? On 693.
My question relates to asking more questions. I thought you had finished. I misunderstand.
I was going to redirect you based on his recall. These radio call numbers, is that your perception, sir?
No, sir. That's what the system reported. The system is showing that 2370, which is the radio ID for Officer Buddy Christian, keyed up and transmitted. That's what I heard on the recording system when that transmission occurred.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move this. No, sir.
You might go ahead.
Thank you.
EBQ, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, next witness.
Same call, Detective Greg Dixon, Your Honor.
Is in 695 is in 694 is not.
That's correct, Judge. That was a copy of 693.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. If you could please have a seat. Pull up to that microphone, state your name, and spell your name for the record.
Greg Dixon. Spelling of the first name is Greg. Spelling the second, Dickson.
And sir, how are you employed?
I'm a detective for the Athens Clark County Police Department, assigned to the Domestic Violence Unit.
And how long have you been an employee of the Athens Clark County Police Department?
For 11 years.
And back on March 22nd of 2011, where were you assigned?
To the same unit.
Okay. And back on March 22nd, 2011, do you recall, what do you recall happening that day?
That morning, I started my day off preparing for a trial in this courtroom, the state court. Went through the entire morning into the middle of the day, breaking for lunch, and trial ended. And then I returned to the office sometime around the lunch hour.
And where was your office located at that time?
It's at 3035 Lexington Road here in Clark County.
Is that on the east side of town?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And did something happen when you went back to your office on the east side of Athens?
Yes, I had my police radio with me since I'd been out on the road coming back from the courthouse, and was not monitoring the radio traffic 100%, but I did hear what appeared to be the sound of an officer in distress.
Okay. And based on that, what did you do?
I ran to a police car and began driving to the west side of town towards Sycamore Drive.
Okay. And when you arrived on scene, what did you encounter?
When I arrived on scene, I found multiple Athens Clark County police cars, some Clark County Sheriff's police cars as well. A lot of law enforcement personnel in the area.
And did you actually make it down to the actual scene on Sycamore Drive where this occurred?
No, sir, I did not.
What were you doing?
When I arrived into the area, I noticed a lot of, like I said, a lot of law enforcement personnel. I got out of the car that I was in, approximately 100 yards down Sycamore Drive from the intersection of West Broad and Sycamore, knowing that there was still possibly a suspect on foot in the area. I began to search dumpsters, trash cans, vehicles, anywhere that a person could be hiding.
At some point, did you notice an ambulance leaving that area?
Yes, I did.
And were you aware of who was in that ambulance?
Yes, I was.
And what did you do based on that ambulance leaving?
The knowledge I had at that time is that that was Officer Tony Howard being transported to Athens Regional Medical Center. I left the area, Sycamore Drive, to go to Athens Regional Medical Center to assist in any way with the investigation there.
Okay. And what did you do when you arrived at Athens Regional Medical Center?
When I got there, Officer Howard had already been taken into a room. They were medical personnel were treating him. They were swarming around him, whatever treatment that he needed. Stayed in that area momentarily, and then I ended up collecting Officer Howard's uniform that had been removed from him when he arrived at the hospital.
Did you have a camera with you that day?
No, sir, I did not.
Were you able to take any photographs?
No, sir.
Were you expecting to need a camera that day?
No, sir, I did not.
How would you describe the scene when you got this call, your reaction to it?
It was chaotic. The only word that I could give for it.
Okay. In regards to the uniform that you collected, where was that uniform?
It was in the same room next to Officer Howard's bed that he was in place. I requested a brown paper bag, or just a paper bag in general, from the staff at the hospital. They provided me one to place his uniform and his boots into.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 696 and ask if you could take a look at that for me. And without explaining to the jury, could you tell me what State 6, if you could just go back up to the stand for a second, I want to ask you a couple questions. What does State 696 appear to be?
This is a property receipt for evidence from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Is that one 697? Marked as 697?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, underneath 697, do you see something marked as 696?
Yes, sir.
And what does 696 appear to be?
It's a brown paper bag.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, without showing to the jury, if you could please take a look inside of State 696.
That's 696 or 697?
696 is attached to the bag, and 697 is attached to a document that was attached to 696. Detective Dixon, do you recognize the contents of State's Exhibit 696?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what does State 696 appear to be?
That is the uniform of Officer Howard that I collected at ARMC.
And does it appear to be the uniform that you collected on that day of March 22nd, 2011?
Yes, sir, it is.
State would move to admit State's Exhibit 696 at this time.
No, sir, Your Honor.
Once you collected his uniform, Officer Howard's uniform, what did you do with it?
I returned to the scene at Sycamore Drive and made contact with Agent Spurlock from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and turned those items over to him as evidence.
Those are all the questions I have, Detective Dixon. Please answer any questions the defendant might have.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Any excuse?
Yes, Your Honor.
Excuse. Thank you.
They would call Special Agent Jonathan Spurlock. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Pull your chair up to that microphone. If you could state your name and spell your name for the record.
Jonathan Spurlock, Jonathan Spurlock.
And sir, if you could please tell the jury, where are you employed?
With the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
And what do you do for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation?
I am assigned to the Atlanta Regional Field Office as a special agent, and I'm attached over to the Social Security Administration Office of Inspector General.
How long have you been employed by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation as a special agent?
As a special agent since March of 2007.
Okay. Back on March 22nd of 2011, where were you assigned as a special agent for the Georgia Bureau of Investigations?
I was assigned to the Atlanta Field Office located in Congress.
And did you have, have a reason to come out to Athens, Georgia, specifically to Sycamore Drive back on March 22nd of 2011?
Yes, sir.
And why did you come to Clark County on that day?
I responded to Clark County that day to that address at the direction of my supervisor as a result of the shooting that occurred, and myself and another agent were dispatched to come out here to assist.
Okay. And when you arrived, did you report it to anyone?
One of the supervisors on duty on the scene.
Okay. And what specifically did you do on March 22nd, 2011?
After I arrived on the scene and met with the supervisor, I was instructed to meet with Detective Dixon for the purpose of obtaining a uniform from him so that we could take it into custody for evidentiary purposes.
Okay, and where did you meet with Detective Dixon?
On the Sycamore Drive.
Okay, and where did he have that uniform?
He had it stored in the trunk of his vehicle.
Okay, and did you retrieve what he had stored?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State Exhibit 696 and 697. State 696, do you recognize that item?
Yes, sir.
And what is State 696?
It is a brown bag that was containing the uniform that belonged to Officer Tony Howard.
And is that the bag that you collected from Officer Dixon on March 22nd, 2011?
Yes.
And State 697, what is State 697?
That is a GPI receipt for property, evidence receipt.
And who filled that out?
I did.
And what is that for?
For chain of custody purposes for evidence in this case.
And what was the evidence that you collected?
I collected, as it is stated, my mother referred to a copy, so I didn't read that.
Would that help refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you would, please.
The uniform belonging to Officer Tony Howard, to include boots, his pants, shirt, suspenders, and a watch.
Okay. And basically it was the contents of his pockets of what was delivered to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The state would move to admit six, and is that evidence form the evidence form that you filled out, or a copy thereof?
That's the original one I filled out.
The state would move to admit State Exhibit 697 at this time.
Objection. No, sir, Your Honor.
What did you do with the uniform once you collected it from Detective Dixon?
Once I collected that bag containing his uniform, I secured it and locked it in the trunk of my vehicle.
And did you ever turn that uniform over to anyone else?
Yes, at the end of that night, I did turn it over to Agent Trent Hillsman.
And was he the case agent for this?
Yes, sir.
Those are all the questions I had. Please answer any questions that I might have.
Yeah, I'll give it. Sir, Mr. Spurlock.
Yes, sir.
How's it going, Mr. Spurlock?
Good afternoon.
And you said you retrieved that uniform, sir?
I obtained it from the detective.
Detective Dixon?
Yes.
Okay. What you do with that uniform after you retained it from Detective Dixon?
I locked it in security in the trunk of my vehicle.
Okay. What do you do with it after that, sir?
After that, later that night, I met with the case agent, Agent Trent Hillsman, and I turned it over to him.
Did anyone do a ballistic, any gunpowder residue? Did somebody ask you to do that while you had that, sir?
No, sir, I was not asked to do anything with the evidence other than secure it and lock it in the trunk of my vehicle until such time that I turned it over to the case agent.
Are you familiar? How long you been a GI agent, sir?
Since March 2007.
Okay. Would you consider yourself a professional?
Yes, I'm a professional.
Do you know anything about gunpowder residue on people or clothes or anything like that?
A little bit.
Would you share with us what you know, the little bit you know, sir? Whatever.
Okay, I'm not a trained expert in that field.
Did you just tell us what you know?
What specifically would you like to know, sir?
Whatever you know.
Yeah, I'm going to object that.
I just thought you said that.
Whatever you know, I think it's probably broad.
Okay, I just say that. I just said the matter of fact. Could you please just tell us what you know, sir, about the gunpowder residue on clothes, please?
Again, is there something specific you would like me to answer? Is there a specific question about this uniform?
Just your overview, just about in general, about gunpowder residue.
Gunpowder from a gun that was fired that would be transferred onto a item or piece of clothing. If you're just talking about clothing specifically.
Yes, sir. Specific clothing. How would that be transferred to clothing?
As a result of a gun being fired.
Okay, do the district have any bearing on how the gunpowder get on their clothing?
Here, I'm going to object. He's not, sorry to say he's not an expert in the field. I think that's outside of their knowledge.
Well, you said he was a professional, you moved on by that. I didn't ask to qualify him. I just, if he knows something,
He has indicated he doesn't know anything about gunpowder residue.
No, he said he wasn't a professional, but he knew a little bit.
I'm not going to argue with you. There have been other people, I believe we've had
No
some.
further question, no further question. That's it.
Anything else?
Here, Your Honor, maybe excuse.
Any objection?
No further question?
Will you be excused?
Thanks, sir.
Call your name, please.
Rebecca Harold.
Afternoon. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about the event shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. If you will, state your full name, spell your last name.
Rebecca Harold, Herold.
Now, back in 2000,
You just end up being about 4 to 6 inches from the microphone. I can adjust it. Just in other words, a little bit closer. Thank you.
all right, back in 2011, did you go by Rebecca Harold?
No, sir. I went by Rebecca Shaw.
All right, if I can get you just to scoot out this home, thank you. And
Move it towards your mouth. There we go. Well,
It kind of falls.
oh, it does. I see. That's probably not going to work either. You have to move it. Try it back up, and then we'll go from there.
okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
all right, thank you. So back in 2011, is that your maiden name?
No.
Oh, okay. But that was the name you went by. That was up. All right. And can you tell us where you work?
I work for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
And what do you do for the GBI?
I'm special agent.
How long have you worked for the GBI?
Next month will be 13 years.
And as a special agent, what are some of your duties and responsibilities?
Well, the GBI is a request agency, so we assist local law enforcement investigating major felony investigations.
All right. And do you handle murder investigations?
We do.
How many murder investigations have you yourself been involved in?
Over my career,
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I don't even know that I can estimate that. It's a lot.
Okay. How many have you handled just this week?
This week I've conducted 2 death investigations myself.
Now, are you a certified law enforcement officer in the state of Georgia?
I am.
And were you so certified back in March of 2011?
Yes, sir.
Now, back in March of 2011, did you have an occasion to assist other investigators with the shooting of Officer Tony Allen?
Yes, I did.
And around 6:30 p.m., did you have an occasion to interview Officer Tony Allen?
I did.
And can you tell us about that and how that occurred?
I was asked to go to Athens Regional Hospital, Medical Center, to interview Tony Howard, who had been shot. When I went into the hospital room, he had not been brought back into surgery yet. So he had been treated a little bit. I think he had received some drugs before I got there, and I conducted an interview with him.
All right. And can you briefly describe his condition?
He was in pain, obviously, and
Just what obviously was don't worry about this. I'm wrong.
All right. Again, can you describe the condition?
sure, he was in pain. He also was falling asleep at some points during the interview. And at the end of the interview, we actually had to stop because he became ill and was vomiting.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. When you started the interview at 6:30, you know how many hours after he had been shot was this interview conducted?
It was several hours. He was shot sometime in the afternoon. I don't remember the exact time, probably 1:30 or 2, somewhere around there.
So about 5 hours.
Yes, sir.
And you indicated that you stopped the interview. How long did it occur? The interview.
I began the interview at approximately 6:30 p.m. and it was just 5 minutes, approximately 5 minutes afterwards we stopped talking
And why did you stop?
because he began vomiting.
And do you know why he was vomiting?
When the doctors rushed in, once he began vomiting, one of the doctors said something about this is probably his reaction to the morphine that he's on.
All right. So, did you know prior to that point he was on morphine?
No, we had not discussed what he was on.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 698.
What is it?
698.
Okay.
Can you continue? Thank you. All right, I'm showing you what's been marked. State's Exhibit 698. Do you recognize that particular type?
I do.
And what is it?
It's a CDR that contains the audio recording of my interview with Officer Tony Howard.
And have you had the occasion to review that particular interview?
Yes, I have reviewed the interview and I've also placed my initials on the CD.
And does it fairly and accurately portray the interview you conducted?
Yes, it does.
And is there being any additions, deletions, or modifications to that report. So the state moves to tender State's Exhibit 698.
Objection.
No, sir, you don't.
May I speak in exhibit, please? At this point, I'd like to publish this exhibit.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, do you feel like talking at all? You think you do? Okay, if you don't feel good or you need to rest, you let me know, okay? We're out there conducting a criminal investigation, so we wanted to get a statement from you if you feel up to it. Yeah? Okay. Can you tell me you were responding to that area? Can you talk? Is that okay for them to take that off? Okay. Okay, you responded to that area because why? Why did you get a call? Yeah. Okay. For Jamie Hood of Bolo. Do you know Jamie?
I'm asking you to stop because I'm wondering if there's something else I can do to help with that. Is there anything? Is that just it?
That's it. It's kind of hard to hear it, but.
I just wanted to see if there was.
You know when you see him? But he got out and approaching you? So he was in between that fish in your car? Two shots? And they hit you? Okay. Do you know what happened after that? Or were you unconscious? You got out of the car onto the ground? Did you see where Jamie went? What about Matthew? Did you ever see him again? What about Buddy? Did you ever see him? Did Jamie say anything to you? No? Do you remember what he was wearing? Did he throw up? Okay, you just take your phone. This is an easy moment. Okay, anytime for me, moment. Plus the thing I found too. Everything that we did on that. We got some stuff playing. Then got the car check, which is our critical care doctor. Yes, absolutely, man. Yeah, you do it. You need to do it. You start feeling sick, you start causing morphine out of the man. We did that. Good. Let's put the garbage can down. Change that. And we'll get some milk for you. Well, that's good for now. We'll talk to you later. Get feeling better.
All right. If I may, let me ask you a few follow-up questions. Obviously, did it appear that Officer Howard was sort of out of it?
Yeah.
All right. And did he have bandages on his face?
I don't remember if he had bandages on his face. I'm sure that they had put something over his face because to stop bleeding, but I don't recall exactly what that would be.
All right. And was he using oxygen when you first started speaking with him?
He was.
Okay. So initially, I believe you asked Officer Howard if why he pulled over the vehicle.
Yes.
You recall that? What was his response? Because it was sort of difficult to hear.
He stated that he'd heard a bolo over the radio from Jamie Hood, but then he stated that dispatch told him to go to the area of Sycamore Drive. So that's why he said he was in the area.
And did he indicate whether he recognized the driver of this red SUV?
Yes, he said that he saw Matthew Hood.
And did you get the impression he sort of was familiar with Matthew Hood?
Yes, I did.
All right. What else did Officer Howard tell you?
He stated that Matthew Hood was either a brother or cousin of Jamie Hood, so we thought that maybe he could assist,
All right.
or maybe he could be with him.
All right. Did he indicate whether he knew whether Jamie Hood was in the car?
He stated to me that he saw a passenger that looked like Jamie Hood.
But at that point, did he know?
He didn't say that he definitively knew. No.
Okay. And at some point, well, let me just ask you this. What did he tell you next?
He stated that he told Matthew Hood, hey, let me talk to you for a minute, and that he was trying to get a better look at the passenger.
Okay. And what had happened when the vehicle stopped?
Said when the vehicle stopped, Jamie Hood exited the vehicle and walked in between the red Expedition and his patrol car.
And Officer Howard, how did you react?
He said that he tried to stop them, and he was real close to the car, said Hood stopped and reached for him, but he kind of got out of his grasp.
And were any words exchanged between the two individuals, Officer Howard and Jamie Hood?
Officer Howard told him to stop, but to my knowledge, Jamie Hood didn't say anything back.
And what did Officer Howard say happened next?
He said that after he broke free of his grasp, then he heard 2 gunshots and felt the pain, and he got out of his car and fell to the ground.
All right, thank you. Now, in addition to this particular interview, did you have a second occasion to go back to the hospital and interact with Officer Allen?
I went back to the hospital on Thursday, which would be March 24th. The doctor had advised me that they were not going to remove the bullet that was in his shoulder initially. When I went there for the first interview, he told me that it may be a day or two. He wasn't quite sure. So I received a call from the hospital. They were going to remove that bullet for me to be present to collect it. So I went to the hospital that afternoon about 2:25 to be present while they removed the bullet.
All right. And do you remember what physician removed that bullet?
Dr. Whitney Webb.
And where did this procedure occur?
At Athens Regional Medical Center.
But I mean, was it in the operating room? Was it in the patient's room? Where was it? Or do you remember?
It wasn't in an operating room. It was in a room. I don't know if that was the room that he stayed in the whole time that he was there, but it wasn't in an operating room.
And were you present as the bullet was removed from the ground? And do you recall what part of the body the bullet was removed?
It was taken from his right shoulder.
And are you sure that it was the right shoulder?
Yes.
Okay. And what part of the right shoulder?
The right scapula.
All right. And do you know where that is?
I'm not a medical doctor,
Okay.
so I don't want to say exactly.
Okay. All right. And well, what did you do with this bullet?
It was collected, and I took it, sealed it up, and gave it to Detective Harold from the Athens County Police Department, who was going to arrange for it to be transported to the GI crime lab.
Your Honor, may we see Exhibit 180?
Can you tell us what 180 is?
It's the bullet. All right. Thank you. Show that. Now, what you're viewing at this point is State's Exhibit 180. It's already been entered into evidence. Do you recognize this item? You can pull it from there. You need some gloves. All right. Do you recognize this item?
I do. It's a bullet.
And
This is what was taken from Tony Howard's right scapula. Right here, the container is sealed with evidence tape, and it's got my initials on it. And it's also got the GDI case number on it.
all right, so explain the process how the bullet got in that container, if you will.
Dr. Webb put the bullet in this container. This container was provided from the hospital. It was not mine. And once he gave me the bullet in the container, I sealed it with evidence tape and initialed it.
All right. And what did you do with the bullet?
I turned it over to Detective Harold with Athens Clark County Police Department to transport it to the crime lab for testing.
Thank you. One moment.
Nothing? Nothing, sure.
Afternoon, Ms. Harold.
Afternoon.
Safety that you interviewed Mr. Howard, Tony Howard, on March 22nd, 2011, that's correct?
Yes.
Was that interview, but you did record the interview, correct?
Yes, sir. It's what we just listened to.
Okay. What's the purpose of recording the interview?
For better documentation.
Isn't it true that you get a recording of the interview so we can present the truth of the matter?
Sure.
When you want to talk to, when you want to talk to Officer Howard, did he refuse to talk to you?
Yeah.
Did he tell you he was so drugged up he couldn't even talk to you?
Yeah.
Did you leave that room because you thought he was too sick to talk to you?
Well, he was vomiting. That's why I left the room.
Did you interviewed him, that correct?
I did.
Okay, before he vomited, did you voluntarily leave that room because you thought he was in such bad shape that you couldn't talk to him?
Yeah.
Okay. So you felt like he was in good enough shape to talk to him, is that correct?
Well, I asked him if he felt up to talking to me, and he said yes.
He didn't tell you he was so incoherent or drugged up that he couldn't talk to you, did he?
He did not tell me that.
Did he have an opportunity to tell you that before you started interviewing him?
Yes.
You did a written report on this interview too, is that correct?
I did.
What's the purpose of doing a written report for?
We summarized all of our interviews.
You did a written report on Officer Howard on March 22nd, 2011, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that the sooner that you get a recorded interview or a written report, it's better because the witness has it fresh on their mind? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Officer Howard, you stated that Officer Howard heard a bolo on the radio with Jackie Hood, correct?
Correct.
Because he was suspecting a carjacking.
That's correct.
Officer Howard stated that he knew Hood if he saw him, is that correct?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you he don't know me or couldn't identify me anything?
And he said he knew he could if he saw him.
Officer Howard stated that he responded to the area of Sycamore Drive and looked for the carjacking suspect, Jackie Hood, is that correct?
Yes.
Officer Howard stated that Hood may have been with his brother Matthew, is that correct?
That's correct.
How would Officer Howard think I'm with Matthew Hood? Why would he feel like I'm with Matthew? Why?
He answered why he thought anything, but my guess would be that we would check any relatives or possible associates if we're looking for somebody. And he thought Matthew was your brother or cousin.
Isn't it safe to say that Officer Howard would be good enough to feel like Matthew Hood know that we was brothers?
Speculation.
I mean, I feel like it's relevant. Yes, but he did state, Mr. Howard stated to you on March 22nd, 2011, that he thought that Jamie Hood be with Matthew Hood. Is that correct?
He thought it was a possibility.
But he stated Jamie and Matthew. He stated both our names. That's correct.
He stated both your names, yes.
Okay. Officer Howard stated that he saw Matthew Hood got a red colored expedition with a passion that looked like Jamie Hood. Is that correct?
He did say that.
So he didn't say he saw Matthew Hood in that vehicle by himself. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If Officer Howard testified that he saw Matthew Hood in that vehicle by himself, would that be correct?
I'm not objecting getting in when it's one witness. That's fine. That's not a problem.
Well, I was justified that he didn't see that.
I object to this.
Just a minute. You're asking the reverse of what you just asked, which you confirmed. I'm going to sustain the objection. Just ask another question.
Mr. Howard told you, did you force Mr. Howard to tell you that he saw a passenger that looked like Jamie Hood?
I did not.
Did you urge him in any type of way to say, hey, he was with Jamie Hood?
I did not.
That was voluntary, but
Yes, I was.
Officer Howard told you when he seen me come in between that red SUV that was patrol car that he said I had a gun in my hand.
No, he said he never saw them.
Never saw a gun.
He didn't see mine, no.
I'm looking in your report, ma'am. I know that you stated a while ago that you said that I grabbed Officer Howard. Why did you say that?
No, sir, I said that Officer Howard attempted to grab you.
I thought you said I reached in and grabbed him. So he didn't say I grabbed him.
No, sir.
So did he ever say I initiated the first contact against him?
No.
Isn't it true? In that interview, Officer Howard stated, I seen Matthew coming from the other apartment right there on Sycamore Drive, right behind Howard Johnson. Is that correct?
Yes.
So he said he saw Matthew coming from the apartment right across from him.
Yes.
Officer Howard never did state that he was driving down the road and just got right behind Matthew Hood.
No.
He said he saw him coming from the apartment right across, right?
He did.
Officer Howard also stated he did not see Officer Christian on Sycamore Drive, did he?
That's correct.
Did he tell you that he saw Officer Christian just sitting in the middle of the road on an unrelated car?
No.
Did he tell you that Officer Christian was just sitting on the unrelated call just waiting on to get off work?
No.
Never said that.
No.
So Officer Howard was telling Matthew, hold up, let me get a look at your passenger. Is that correct?
He said, hold up, let me talk to you for a minute.
Okay, did he ever tell Matthew, hold up, let me get a look at your passenger?
I don't know that he said that to him. He was saying that to me, that he wanted to get a look when he was telling me he wanted to get a look of the passenger. But he was saying him to Matthew, hold up, let me talk to you for a minute.
So he never did say that about let me get a look at your passenger.
I don't believe he did.
Is it possible he could have said that just so long you forgot?
It's possible, but that's not what he said in the interview.
Okay.
I wasn't there with him to know exactly what his words were.
But you were there with him when he told you, is that correct?
Yeah, he told me that he wanted to talk to him for a minute.
Okay, Chris. Is it true that Mr. Howard stated, I told Matthew, I said, hold up, let me talk to you for a minute while I get a better look at your passenger. Is that correct?
I think that's what you just asked me.
So can I play it, refresh your memory? If you can't remember, I can play this video in a specific time and I can refresh your memory.
Yeah. You can play it.
Can I do that to you? Okay, can I see you? gonna go from 245 to 312, Your Honor. You ready, sir?
I'm ready.
He said, hold up, I want to talk to you for a minute while I get a look of the passenger, but I took it that he was saying that part to me, not to Matthew Hood. To answer your question.
Well, is it the truth that Mr. Howard told you that he told Matthew, hold up, let me get a better look at your passenger?
Your Honor, as the
Stunning.
Do you recall Mr. Howard telling you he put his car reverse at any time?
No, I don't recall that.
Did I play a portion of this video to hurt your memory, man? Your Honor, I'd like to go from 327 to 342.
Yes, sir.
Will you agree he told you he put his car reverse and back up?
Yes, he initially said his car parked and then put it in reverse.
He said put it in reverse and back up, didn't he?
Yes.
He and Mr. Howard said he did not see a gun in the hand, man. That's correct.
That's correct.
No further question.
Yes. Let me ask you, do you know whether this vehicle that Mr. Hood jumped out of, do you know whether it had tinted windows all around the vehicle?
I don't remember if it did or not.
Did you ever see the vehicle?
I did see it, but I didn't do an examination of it.
And as far as the position of the vehicles, based on this very brief interview, were you able to have Officer Howard draw a map and get a clear understanding of the position of the two vehicles when they first interacted?
No, our interview was very brief.
Now, did Officer Howard ever indicate that he actually ever made it out of the car before being shot?
No, he said he was inside the car when he was shot.
Now, with respect to what was said to Mr. Matthew Hood by Officer Howard, the fact that he's wanting to ask him questions about his passenger, does that suggest to you that he did not know Jamie Hood was in the car?
That does suggest that to me.
Now, when the defendant asked you whether Officer Howard mentioned anything about Officer Christian, do you know at the time of this interview, did he know Officer Christian had been shot and killed by the same defendant?
He did not know that at the time I talked to him.
And one last question. When you interviewed Officer Howard, did he positively identify the person that shot him?
He said it was Jamie Hood.
Thank you. No further questions.
Briefly, Your Honor, just briefly. Ma'am, now he just asked you, well, Officer Howard was sure it was Jamie Hood, but he sure told you the passenger looked like Jamie Hood, didn't he?
He did say the passenger looked like Jamie Hood.
Okay. He also said Jackie Wood shot him, right?
Yeah.
So that would show you that Officer Howard know who shot him then if you said Jackie Wood shot him, right?
Right.
I am the one who shot him too, isn't that right?
That's right.
No further question.
Anything else? No. All right. You may go down.
Detective Jeff Harold.
Did we say anything about subject recall? Or not? I got it on my witness.
If you will, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony about to present before this court shall be the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. If you will, could you state your full name and spell your last name?
My name is Jeffrey Harold.
And, I'm sorry.
Jeffrey, Harold, Herold.
And where do you work?
I'm a crime scene investigator with the Athens Clark County Police Department.
And how long have you been doing crime scene investigations?
9 years.
And can you briefly describe some of your duties and responsibilities?
We process, respond to calls for service. We process everything from entering auto to rape, robbery, murder. We lift the fingerprints. We collect evidence. We take photographs.
And did you also serve in the military prior to being a police officer?
I did.
And where did you serve and how long?
I was a military police dog handler in the Army for 5 years, and I joined the Air Force Reserve after that. I still currently serve.
Now, with regard to the young lady that just finished testifying, do you know her?
I do.
And how do you know her?
She's my wife.
Okay. Were you married back in 2011?
We're not.
Now, just so you're aware, everything you say is being transcribed. Okay. Now, with regard to March 22nd, were you a certified law enforcement officer?
I was.
All right. And with regard to this case, did you perform any functions with regard to the crime scene of a Sycamore?
I did.
And what did you do of Sycamore?
I was contacted. I was working the 3 to 11 shift that particular day. I was contacted. I was still at home. It was roughly around 2 o'clock that afternoon, and I was contacted by Sergeant Salters, and he informed me that on Sycamore Drive that Buddy Christian had been shot and killed, and Tony Howard had been shot and was still receiving treatment. It was unknown if he was going to be, if he was going to survive his injuries. At that point in time, he asked me that I respond immediately, which I did.
All right. And what did you do once you arrived?
Once I arrived, in a lot of normal circumstances, the way the county and the GBI would work together collectively, in a particular case of an officer-involved shooting, we take a backseat role, and we're basically there as an assist for those agents.
And part of that assistance, were you asked to process any of the vehicles, patrol cars?
I was asked to assist in processing Officer Howard's car for latent fingerprints.
All right. And did you do that?
I did.
Okay. And do you recall who actually lifted those prints off of it?
Sergeant Radford used the tape to collect the tangible evidence from that car.
Now, do you know, with regard to spent shell casings, first of all, did you see any spent shell casings near the patrol vehicle?
I did.
And did you yourself collect those?
I did not.
Do you know who did?
Agent Rossler was the crime scene specialist that was going to assume the command as far as those crime scene duties was concerned. It's my understanding. I'm sure that Agent Rossler was probably responsible for those collections of those shell casings.
All right. And did those shell casings ever get into your possession?
They did later on, yes, sir.
Okay. And tell us how that occurred.
On the 24th of March, some of that evidence was signed over to me. One of the things that about the GBI is they don't have a large storage facility for evidence. That evidence was turned over to me so I could turn it over to our evidence room. A lot of times our evidence room, they'll take those items collectively. They'll take a crime lab submission, and they'll take those things to the crime lab for testing.
And at this time, Your Honor, can we show the witness what's already been tendered, State's Exhibit 669 and 670, the spent shell case?
You got the exhibit. You want the other sheet with it?
Yes.
Because it's got a different number.
That's 670 is probably the sheet, and 669.
668.
Right.
669.
Can we get this?
So I'm seeing the sheet and not the back.
All right. Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 669 and 670?
I do.
All right. And are these the spent casings that came into your possession?
This is the bag that the casings I presume are inside.
And what did you do with these spent casings once you received them?
When these casings were received, we signed the chain of custody, the evidence receipt. In this particular case, they were signed over to me. For these items were signed over by, appears to be Agent Rossler. And in which case I would package these items, and because the GBI would have their own chain of custody form, I would generate an Athens Clark County form and start a second link to that chain in which I would take it and place it in the evidence in our facility.
Now, in addition to what you've already described, did you participate in any other evidence collection and processing of the scene that day on Sycamore Drive?
Processing the car was pretty much as far as an investigative act.
All right. Well, let me ask you, let me be more specific. Did you have anything to do with regard to Buddy Christian?
I did.
And tell the gentleman about that.
At one point in time during the processing, it was time to remove Officer Christian from his car. There was myself, Detective Schultz, and I recall the coroner being there as well. We went ahead and Agent Rossler took necessary photographs of the inside of the car, and also of Officer Christian and his injuries. that we, once he was completed with the crime scene processing piece, we removed him from the field.
Thank you. One moment. Now, with regard to another piece of evidence in this case, did you receive a projectile in this case into your possession?
I did.
And can you tell us about that particular projectile that you received in your possession?
There were some additional items of evidence, ballistic items of evidence that were signed over by Agent Harold, was Agent Shaw at the time. All these items collectively, separately were packaged together. I completed basically a brief narrative. A lot of times we send evidence to the crime lab for testing, and based on their policies, they'll test maybe one or two items conceivably on their end, maybe perhaps at random. So what I like to do is to present a narrative, to explain to them what the case is, what the items of evidentiary value are, what we needed processed and tested as far as the priority goes. So I did that and put these items together and submitted them to the evidence room so that they could be taken to the crime lab.
And Your Honor, if the witness may, can you state Exhibit 180, the projectile? And if you will, can you go ahead and pull that out and inspect that item? Is that also an item that came in your possession?
It is.
All right. And what specifically did you do with that item once you received it?
The item itself was put into one of our evidence collection bags. Like I said before, you have chain of custody from the GBI. I would generate a new chain of custody from my point forward. That was completed, and this was submitted into evidence for transport to the crime lab.
And let me just ask you, and this includes the spent shell casings as well, describe the process of putting something into evidence and how that works.
So obviously packaging is an important item. We're going to fill out the information here. For this particular item of evidence, it's got the data collection. It was at 3:24 of 11. It was at 16:15. It's 4:15 in the afternoon. Collected by R. Shaw, signed over to J. Earl, myself. Description of this is a container with the bullet projectile. The type of the offense, victim and potential suspect. It's placed into the bag. This evidence tape is applied, and my initial and badge number are placed on here. So this is an evidence, a tamper-proof or tamper evidence seal. This is sealed, and at this point in time, I go into the computer. I put in the item description, collection information, and so on and so forth, and I produce that chain of custody from the Athens County Police Department.
And the process that you just described, is that what you did with the shell casings as well?
I did.
And once you submitted into evidence, can you just describe, does anybody else have access to this evidence? How does that go?
When you go into the evidence room, there's two ways to access the evidence room from either side. It's got two doors, and next to the doors you have evidence lockers. And once you put an item into evidence and you close the door, it's locked. We cannot go back, and even officers, detective command staff, we do not have access to the evidence room. It is up to the evidence technicians on the other side to recover those items of evidence. Once they take those items out of that controlled area, they sign for that chain of custody, just the links in the chain. They're the next ones in that chain. And so that's how each one of these are put up. They're placed in that particular locker, and it's closed.
Okay. And once you put State's Exhibit 180 and the spent shell casings, that was I believe it was 669 and 670. Once you placed them in the lockers, did you have anything more to do with those particular pieces of evidence?
No, at that point in time, once I complete the crime lab submission and that narrative that I spoke of, that completes that part.
And the packaging that you placed them in, were they sealed, free of tampering or any kind of damage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One moment.
Afternoon, Mr. Elmer, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
You said you wanted to Sycamore Drive, sir?
I did.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, yeah. You said you went to Sycamore Drive, sir?
I did.
You said you processed the video.
Yes, Officer Howard's car, I assisted in that investigative activity.
Okay, tell us how you processed this car that they searched.
Apply black fingerprint powder to the exterior of the car. Whenever a fingerprint would become visible, Sergeant Radford would come by behind us with the transparent evidence tape and collect the tangible evidence.
Who helped process the car? Mr. Radford, sir?
That's correct.
Did you process the inside of the car?
I did not.
Okay, good. You went all the way around that car process, make a rich, sir?
That's the exterior of the vehicle, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you notice the cameras in that car and that one anything?
I believe there was a camera in there.
Did anybody take time to see it was a tape recorder of the shooting incident?
I do recall as the incident was unfolding, there was a lot of time-sensitive stuff going on with suspect descriptions and that kind of thing. I recall Officer Blagg being summoned to the scene. Officer Blagg was one of our IT people. He was summoned to the scene, and I recall him looking inside the vehicle for any potential video evidence that would have been present.
Excuse me, sir, what officer name, sir?
Blagg.
B-L-A-C-K?
No, B-L-A-G-G.
Okay, Blagg. This March 22nd, 2011, sir? So he looked it up for that evidence, video camera evidence?
What he did once he was inside of that vehicle, I can't testify to. I don't know what he did.
Okay, but he, from what you think, he looked it up for that audio video tapes and everything.
Right. My recollection was that he went to the vehicle and that I had learned indirectly afterwards that there was no evidence that would help us in our pursuit for the suspect at that point.
Yes. This is subject to recall.
All right, that's probably enough for today. I will let y'all know that your room will get transportation.